Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our National Association of Enabling Educators Australia webinar series for 2023. I'm Fiona Nabban, one of your NAEEA Enabling Executives and also the Director of Access and Equity at Edith Cowan University. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands that we're all meeting on today. I'm facilitating this webinar from Whadjuk Noongar country here in Perth, Western Australia, but pay respects to elders past and present to wherever you're from today, and also acknowledge the continuing recognition and contribution that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people make to our communities and education across Australia. So a little bit about the National Association of Enabling Educators Australia represents enabling and pathways educators, and it is a group that you can join membership for, and I really encourage you to consider joining as a member. You don't have to be an enabling educator to be a member, but if you're interested in great practice in education and student support, then encourage you to join. There's lots of benefits to being a member of NAEA, such as participation in our special interest groups, and you can look on the website to the different interest groups that we have. Regular updates about what's happening in the sector, as well as potentially contribution to what's happening. Professional development opportunities such as these webinars or through the special interest groups. Opportunities to across Australia, and we also provide a biannual conference as well. So a little bit about today's webinar. You'll note that your microphones and cameras are currently off. We will enable them at the end of the webinar to provide you opportunity to ask any questions of our presenter today. You can use the chat function to post any questions, and there will be time for Q&A at the end, as I mentioned. So the session will also be recorded and shared on the NAEA website and our YouTube channel, so you can come back and watch or share with colleagues as well. So I'd like to hand over now to Dr Min Pham from University of South Australia to talk Enabling the Enablers, Professional Development for Peer Leaders to Enhance the Student Learning Experience. And thank you, Min, for taking the time today to present this webinar.
Thank you very much, Fiona, for the introduction. And hello, everyone from Adelaide, and thank you very much for the time to join the presentation today. Even though Fiona has already helped us to do the acknowledgement of the country, I would also like to acknowledge that I'm presenting today on the Ghana land people in Adelaide. I would like to pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And I also would like to acknowledge and respect the Ghana's people, cultural, spiritual, physical, emotional connection with their land, waters, and communities. So before I go into details of the presentation, I would like to take this opportunity to thank my teams, past teams in USA College. So as you know that I am working for the college at the University of South Australia, and we call USA College for short. So I would like to thank Teresa Tai, Robert Cook, and Alison for their support with this program over the last few years. And I also would like to thank all of my colleagues, academics and tutors for promoting PASS in their courses and tutorials, and especially for encouraging their students to come to PASS session for extra support. So what I would like to share with you today is very briefly about what PSS, the study sessions, is. I'm sure that many of you here are quite familiar with this program, but few of you may not really, familiar with this program, so I will be very quick on that one. I will also share with you some of the impact of the PASS program in higher education, and this is based on the literature that is done on the case that I'm going to present. Then I move on to focus on what the difference that we have identified and what we have done differently, and some of the impact of what we have done in terms of professional development for PASS leaders to support other students. So first of all, what is PASS? A peer-assisted study session is an academic support program and led by peer. And this program was based on the supplemental instruction developed by Dr. Martin Diana in 1973 at the University of Missouri in the United States of America. So in this program, high-achieving students, when we say high-achieving, we usually mean the student achieve distinction or high distinction in the courses that they have completed. They are employed as a peer leaders or often referred as past leaders to support their peers or support other students to learn academic content. So PASS is a voluntary confidential academic peer-to-peer support. It's voluntary because students are encouraged to participate or to attend the session for extra support. That is a compulsory part of their studies. It's confidential in the sense that their visiting to PASS will not be reported back to their teachers or course coordinator, even though their attendance usually recorded in some of the very anonymous and confidential manner. And PASS usually often to the first-year student in a very common course for first-year student, but now I have seen that many institutions around the world offer PASS for students not only in first year, but also all other year levels. And PASS is often managed by a PASS supervisor, and many cases supervisor is a professional staff member. So that's a very quick introduction about what is PASS is about. And what are some of the benefits of PASS in higher education? So I focus very much on higher education. So when we work on PASS, we have done a bit of literature review, and in terms of the benefits that PASS have brought to students in higher education, there are three main categories here. The benefits for PASS attendees, which means for students coming to PASS for extra support. So PASS contribute a lot to the academic benefit in terms of higher mean grades, lower failure withdrawal rates, and higher retention and graduation rates for those students who come to the PASS session for extra support. PASS also contributes significantly to personal development for students in terms of social relationship, general satisfaction, and well-being. In terms of the benefits for PASS leaders, for those students who are employed to support other students, PASS help them to develop their leadership skills, intercultural communication skills, time management, critical thinking, and especially employability. So when I refer to employability, I mean those students who work as a PASS leader often more likely to get a job after they graduate because of their experience and because of the credit that they got from the programs. In terms of the benefits for the institution, PASS has been very cost-effective in terms of the money value for the support services. So the money or the financial or the budgets that institution invest in PASS usually in a very moderate amount of money, but the benefit, the support that they can provide students is very effective. So that's why PASS has been very cost-effective for many institutions. PASS also provide a good channel for disseminating the information to the wider community, including alumni. And last but not least, PASS actually help to promote the financial contribution. When I say financial contribution, I mean that a lot of study already found that PASS leaders go out to work, they get a job, they become professionals, and they went back to the institution and contribute financially to their contribution. So that's why we said that here's financial contribution from PASS to the institutions. So over the last 3 decades, there have been a lot of studies and a lot of research provide empirical evidences for the benefits of PASS, and these are some of the key benefits that I have summarized from the literature and categorized them in terms of the three groups: benefits for PASS leaders, benefits for PASS students, and for institutions. So what has contributed to this impact? Now, it is important to say that PASS leaders play the most important role because they are the frontline staff members. They are working with students, supporting students in content or academic content learning. And as a part of the process, PASS leaders often get professional training from their supervisors, and PASS supervisors often get training on the aspect of implementing ongoing management and evaluating a PASS program. And therefore, when we review all of these, we think that the professional training development for PASS leaders are often very generic and focus very much on peer collaboration to study academic content, especially through the peer facilitation of group discussion for content learning. So looking at this model or these popular models from past professional training, we identify some of the needs that we need to think about. First of all, professional training development for PASS is quite generic and, are focused very much on academic content learning. And we see that the differences in educational setting have not been taken into consideration sufficiently and effectively. And therefore, there is a lack of focus on non-academic factors. And I'm sure that many of us here are enabling educators. We know that non-academic factors such as, confidence, lack of motivation, or feeling lost are very important in academic learning, especially in enabling education sector. Therefore, we see that the professional development training for PASS has been decontextualized and sometimes distant from the pedagogical practice of institutions. And last but not least, we also identify a lack of communication between the stakeholders in the process, especially between the PASS leaders and academics. Now, this is understandable because if we have an institution that have hundreds of course coordinators and thousands of students, and how is it impossible for PASS leaders to actually know who are the course coordinator and how they can communicate? But anyways, it is still challenging, but it is something that we discover in the review of what has been done as a professional development for PASS leaders. So based on this one, we have done a little bit different. So what we have done at the USA College. So USA College is an enabling education institution belong to the University of South Australia. USA College provide foundation study programs, diploma programs, and operational pathway program. We also have offer classes, tutorial in metro area campuses and also in regional campus such as Mount Gambier, Port Lincoln, Seduna. Some of these campuses are 700 or 800 kilometers away from the central campus in the city. Those courses are offered on campus, online, and externally, and we are enabling education, so we have open access. So the open access here means that the diversity of our students is quite immense and vast. So the table that I have here, just to give you some idea of how diverse it is, I'm sure that if we are enabling educators, we are quite familiar with this diversity of students. So you've seen that we have almost 1 in 2, which is almost 50% of our students come from low socioeconomic status background. We have 64% of students come from culturally and linguistically diverse background. 23% of students identify with disabilities, and we have 7% of students are Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander students. So this is quite diverse, as we can see is, from this table. So PASS was trial in some of the literacy courses in 2018, and then it was formalized and offered in all the courses at our University College in 2019. So what we have done so far, now in response to those differences or those needs that we have identified before in terms of professional development for PASS leaders, what we have done, we have developed contextualized professional development training workshops, a series of workshops including 4 workshops, in addition to other support, leadership skills and time management that we have for PASS leaders. These are more specific and contextualized professional training workshops that we have developed over the years in response to the needs, to the learning needs of our PASS leaders and students. So the first one is Introduction to Enabling Pedagogies. The second one is about supporting English as an additional language or dialect students, so we call EALD students. The third one is focusing on unpacking language needs to support content learning. And the last one is a very much technical one, is using Zoom for PASS session. So I would like to go through quickly what we have done in each of these, and I think that we may not have time to go in detail, but I'm happy if any of you interested in this workshop and have more comment or question, when we go to the end of this session. So in the first workshop, Introduction to Enabling Pedagogies, this one was developed in response to inquiry from our students. So in 2018, when PASS was trial and piloted, we discovered that 74% of the inquiries from our students, of more than 100 queries from our students for the first time coming to PASS, actually related to non-academic matters. It's usually about, I feeling lost, I don't know what to do, I don't think that I have, I have been understood. So, our PASS leaders reported that they feel a little bit ill-equipped because they not very familiar with these queries. So that's why we developed this workshop to help them. So in this workshop, we introduce students to the diversity, to the past leaders, to the diversity of the student cohort in the college, so that they know that, who are their peers and where they come from and what sort of challenge or learning needs that they usually have when they come to past sessions. We also introduce our past leader to the college culture, the curricular and teaching practice that we have, with a clear focus on enabling pedagogies, as many of you here are quite familiar and experts of these pedagogies. We highlight the importance of non-academic factors in enabling education and how these non-academic factors actually influence or important in the learning academic content for our students. And the workshop provides opportunities for past leaders to actually critically reflect on their own teaching and learning, so that they know that, when someone coming into the past session for help, they would sort of knowing where the student come from and what they usually have as a learning needs. So that is the first workshop. In the second workshop, we call Supporting EALD Student. So this workshop developed in 2019 as a response to emerging data that we collected from our past attendees. If I remember correctly, over more than 200 student visits to past session, 80% of them actually identify as English as additional language or dialect students. And the peer leaders also expressed that they feel a little bit challenging or difficult to support the peers. So we developed this workshop, and this workshop we help our past leaders to understand who are EALD students, what are some characteristics of EALD students, and we focus very much on the fact that EALD students have to do three things at the same time. They have to learn English, they have to learn about English, and they have to learn English. So when I mention they have to learn English, they have some of the students just come to Australia for a very short time. So they still have to learn how to write, how to read English. They have to learn about English grammar, how to use English for social purposes in their everyday life. And at the same time, they have to learn other content such as human anatomy or biology or chemistry or business or economics in English. So actually help our past leaders to understand that EALD students actually have to do three things at the same time. So our past leaders can understand how challenging it is for their peers to learn all of these things. And then we also talk about some of the common challenges that EALD students usually have when they are studying in the mainstream class with other students who speak English as a first language. The sense of isolation, the lack of confidence, and feeling not good enough or incapable of doing something in class. And the key thing in this workshop, we developed some strategies to support our past leaders to help their peers, especially their EALD peers. So we help them, for instance, with some of the concept-checking question strategies. So concept-checking question strategy is very much about how you are going to ask someone some question in order to check whether they got or they understand what you explain, without making them feel inferior or incapable. We also help our past leader with some chance languaging pedagogies. So chance languaging pedagogy is an intentional use of multiple languages at the same time to learn the content. So we can do this one because some of our past leaders are actually multilingual language users. They can speak up to 2 or even 3, and I still remember that one of our past leaders speak 4 different languages. So if an EALD student coming in and asking questions about content in a subject area, but their English proficiency is not up to the level of learning that one, so we encouraged our past leader to use different languages to talk with the student, but by the end of the session, they have to go back to English and summarize what they have discussed. So we use that as a chance languaging pedagogy to support students, especially EALD students. The third workshop that we have developed so far called Unpacking Language Needs to Support Content Learning. So again, this one also was designed and delivered to past leaders in response to the challenge identified by our past leaders. So our past leaders often say that they got students coming in asking questions about academic content, but they discover that their English is not up to the level that is help them to learn the content. So using content and language integrated learning, or we call CLIO. So I'm sure that many of you here are quite familiar with this CLIO model. So content and language integrated learning was developed in Europe, I think, in 1990 to help students to learn language and content at the same time. So the difference here compared to other model is the content and the language are equally important in this model. So this model helps us to think if someone coming in a past session asking a question about content, then we have to think about, in order to learn that content, what are some language demands of the content for students to learn. So when I said the language demand, I mean what's some sort of vocabularies that students need to be able to master before they can talk about the topic. What are some ways of organizing information specifically to the subject area? So by that I mean, what are some of the genres specific to the different academic areas? What is the structure of this genre, and how the information is easily expressed in this kind of genre for students to understand that? And then we combine with, or integrating with a teaching and learning cycle. So a teaching and learning cycle is a 4 or 5 stages, depends on, some people say 4 stages, some people say 5 stages, but usually it's the 4 stages of a cycle when a teacher helping a student by providing support, but along the way the teacher should have release the power or take off their responsibility and push student more to what they're taking their own agency in the learning process. So it's a scaffolding process. So combine these two things together, we help our past leader to understand if someone coming in asks a question about content, then in the head you have to think about what sort of language demand for this content, and how much do you already know about. If they know very little, then you have to start from the first stage of the teaching and learning cycle. But if they already have the very good command of English for the content, then you may have to move from the first stage of teaching and learning cycle up to the number 3 stage, which is co-construction or collaborative learning. So helping this one, so it is very challenging for past leader also, but with this workshop, actually over the years, past leader discuss with each other, and with our support, they developed the strategy to support their peer in learning the content and language at the same time. So that is the third workshop. And finally, the last one that we have, this one is using Zoom for past session. And this one is very technical. And I'm sure many of you know that this is response to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, when the university decided to transition into the online teaching and learning because of the COVID. So this one, we focus on helping our past leader to embed some of the digital platforms such as Padlet and Mentimeters in the Zoom session so that they can help our students. But the key thing that we learned from this one is that actually offering pass through the Zoom session help us to reach out to regional students, especially those from Gambia and Port Lincoln, to help them. And it's also making past session more flexible and accessible to students, so we can continue support our students during the COVID time. So these are the series. This is a series of 4 workshops that we have developed responsively over the years to support our past leaders to provide support for their peers. So we want to see how it worked and what are the impact of these workshops. We do a bit of data collection. So this is a very initial data collection that we have. We send surveys every time. We send a survey to our past attendees. We had 115 students respond to the survey, and 39 of them also provided additional comments for the survey. We survey past leaders, so 30 past leaders have responded to the survey, and 8 of them actually provided a paragraph-long reflection. They often wrote about 300 or 400 word paragraph as a reflection. We also sent out some of the survey to our academics, and 7 of our colleagues have responded. And we look at one of the course grade to see if past have contributed anything to the academic achievement of our students. So some of the initial findings that I would like to share with you here about the impact of those workshops. So The first one is from the past leader perspective. So as I said that 30 past leader in 2019 up to 2022 have responded to or participated in those training, and they responded to the survey. 100% of them said that these workshops are very helpful, very useful for them because it provides them opportunity to reflect and understand themselves as enabling education students, help them to develop and enhance their ability to understand, build, and sustain social trust with their peers before they actually can help them to learn academic content. This workshop also help them to develop their pedagogical skills to support their peer, but also help them to study more effectively in undergrad studies. And I remember that some of the past leaders are currently in the undergrad program, and they said that what they have learned from those workshop actually helped them to be a leader in the group assessment in their study in undergrad program. So here are some of the quotes that I got from those past leader reflections, and they usually comment on how important it is to focus on a non-academic factor in order to support their peer to learn academic content. From past attendees' perspective, as I mentioned before, we got 115 students responded to the surveys, and 100% of them was very satisfied with their visit to the past session. 100% of them also strongly recommend other students attend past for extra support, and they focus on their responses focus on the fact that attending past session promotes their sense of belonging, enhance their confidence to aim high, and also achieve a higher grade in their course. So there is some quite a I said before 39 students provide comments, but I just put some of them here as an example. And we also look at one of the core courses at the college. This course is a core course, so all students enrolled in the college would take this course, the university studies course. Look at the grade in this course over a long period of time, from study bit 5 in 2018, when I said before, this is a time when PATH was still in a trial process, up to 2022, so it is about 4 years. We've seen that on average, the overall course grade of those students who attending past sessions, which presented in the orange line here, is a little bit higher compared to those students who did not come to PASS for help. In terms of the percentage, it is around 7% different between those who come to the PASS and who did not come to the PASS for help. From the teacher's perspective, 7 colleagues have responded to our survey and provide comments, and they generally said that PASS actually help to provide an important source of reference for their practice. PASS leader also provide some suggestion for them to actually innovate their curriculum and teaching practice, and PASS information from PASS and PASS leaders help them to understand more the challenges for their student in the course, and therefore help them to provide extra support for their students. So the thing is that our PASS leaders often have opportunities to communicate with our academics. The reason for this is because our PASS office is very close to the student classrooms and also close to our academics offices. So that's why there is more chance for interaction between PASS leaders and academics to talk about those things. So I have seen that our PASS leaders often talk with the academic in some of the courses and say, we got some student coming in asking certain questions about the course. So what would you help, what would you suggest us to help them, and what you have done, and we suggest this and that. So it provides channels of communication why the course coordinator can explain to PASS leader more about the course, and the PASS leader can also explain to the course coordinator more of the queries or the challenges that students usually come and ask them for help. So what's the difference here? As I said before, the very common popular model in a PASS currently in higher education is supervisor, often a professional staff members. As a supervisor, provide training for PASS leaders, very much focused on academic learning through the facilitation of group discussion. Therefore, it's quite generic and lack of focus on the non-academic factors in learning. And then PASS leader will provide service or support for other students or attendees. But what we have done different here, we still have a path leader in the central of the process. But we have survey from the path leader to see what they have been doing. We have survey from students to understand emerging learning needs. And then based on this survey, we come back to develop our workshops. We also talk with our academics and open or provide channel for academic communicate and talk with path leaders so that they can understand what sort of questions students often ask, and path leaders also have more information about the courses. And then the teacher or our colleagues will provide support for our students, and then path leaders will also have more information to provide support for their peers. So this is a different model, and I think there are a few things that I would like to come to the conclusions here. The first one is, based on the model, we understand that the importance of the non-academic factors in peer support services, and especially in non-traditional higher education contexts. Now, if it is in the traditional higher education context, then it may be different, but this is a very different context. We are in enabling education, higher education. So the importance of non-academic factors is actually very important in peer support service also. We also discover the importance or highlight the importance of education setting. So who are our students, the cohort of students? What is the curriculum and pedagogical practice that we are practicing in our daily teaching and learning together with our students? So this is also important for our path leaders. Contextually specific and emerging need to be addressed through the professional development for path leaders. So based on our small case studies in University College and our experience over the last 4 years, we have seen that actually collecting data from students and then look at what they have been doing when they come to the path session help us to actually respond to their emerging needs. So at the beginning, the support is very much focused on the academic content, and then we, progressively to see the need to focus more also on non-academic factors, to focus to support on EAD students, and also to support students in learning academic content while their English is or their language proficiency is still limited. And we think that it is important for path leader to communicate with academics, the course coordinator. Now, as I said before, we have been able to do this one because we are a relatively small group of academics and students. So we have roughly about 25 course coordinators, and we have around 1,200 to 1,400 students per year. Now, it depends on the year, but round about that number. So we can actually create opportunity for path leaders to communicate with our academics, but I am not sure how that is possible or effective or convenient to do so in a big institution when we have hundreds of course coordinators and thousands of students. Now, when I say that, I mean it's difficult, but it's not impossible. So we still strongly recommend providing opportunity for path leaders to communicate with academic when possible. And last but not least, we come to understand that actually paths become a very important reference sources for our academics in terms of their curricular and pedagogical innovation for instruction. So in terms of this one of our academics, our colleagues before said that talking to the path leaders, she understand more about what challenge students usually have in her course. So she go back and then provide more support for that specific queries. Another colleague also said that, an example here is when we have a good number of students coming to ask the same question about the same thing in the same course, and we communicate with the course coordinators and say, can we have a look at it, and can you have a look at it again and see is there anything that you can tweak a little bit? So the course coordinator did a bit of changing, and it worked very effectively. And after that, we don't see any student, or we don't see a good number of students coming in to ask same question about same thing before. So the conclusions that we come to here and strongly suggest that paths actually become a very important source of references for our academic and for their teaching and learning practice. So that is what I have got so far to share with you. Before I stop, I would like to thank Naya very much for this opportunity, and I also would like to thank Fiona for her support over the last few weeks to prepare for this one. Fiona was very kind, generous, and supportive, helping me to run the mock session before to make sure that we are technically okay with the session. So I really appreciate that, and thank you, Fiona, for that. I would also like to thank you all here for taking the time. I know that it is usually the break time, and many of you may have been on leave. Thank you for the patience, the kindness, and to follow the presentation. And I would love to hear comment or question or suggestions or any further comments that you have for the past, what you have done in your institution, what you have developed, and what we can learn from that. Thank you, everyone. And I think the last one is about the reference. Yeah. Thank you. Back to you, Fiona.
Thank you so much, Min, and thank you for taking the time for putting this presentation together and sharing with it all today. For everyone in the webinar, I'm about to allow your microphones and cameras, so if you do have any questions, you can either turn your mic and camera on or keep using the chat function there. I guess thank you, Min, for really sharing that really considered and collaborative approach to upskilling your past leaders, but also really strengthening the whole program across the board. And I think for me, what really stood out is one of the comments that you had there from one of the past leaders, that how they said, they thought they could just keep working hard and they would get good grades. But that going through that program that you've put together, really realizing it's not that easy. It's not the same for all students. So I think the power in that can't be kind of understated in terms of their own development and awareness and supporting them to work with their peers and whatever they go on to do in the future as well.